case, the Chinese company may also be looking at the U.S. market as well. So in general, the Chinese government is encouraging the companies to come out as part of the 12 5-year plan. So there are different incentives for these Chinese companies to come out, and there are certain advantages on part of these Chinese companies when they come out here to the United States to make acquisitions. One obvious advantage is that they have a lot of cash. Typically, especially in middle market deals, very rarely financed from external sources. For example, bank debts or bond debts. Many of these deals that I've been involved in are totally or predominantly financed by their internal cash, right from China. So there are some advantages, going to the favor of Chinese companies. And what are some of the challenges? I would say the first thing, if you're, again, from a Chinese company's perspective, that you want to look at when you come here to the States to make acquisitions, is to look at the regulatory issues. And there's two sides of the coin. There's the Chinese regulatory procedures you have to go through. There's Ministry of Commerce approvals. There's NDRC, or National Development and Reform Commission approvals, and there's SAFE, State Administration of Foreign Exchange approvals. The first two are more substantive and time-consuming. So the procedures have been simplified a lot over the past 4 or 5 years, and the requirements have been relaxed again because of the encouragement by Chinese government for these companies to come out. But again, you want to be very careful in your application to these authorities, telling a convincing story that you're really investing in a viable project. The Chinese government wants to encourage outbound investments in real economy companies, tangible economy companies. They don't want to use foreign exchange out of China to buy U.S. stock or treasury or that kind of investments. So that's the Chinese regulatory side. You also need to look at the U.S. regulatory side. There's been a lot of discussion recently about some of the more prominent deals sort of falling apart due to CFIUS concerns. So that is obviously a very legitimate concern for many of these Chinese companies. And for better or for worse, a company coming from China, could raise more of a red flag, as opposed to companies from elsewhere. So that's a regulatory issue that a Chinese company needs to look at. And the second challenge or issue that a Chinese company needs to look at is due diligence. It may sound like common sense that you need to know what you're buying, who you're dealing with before you actually part with your cash. But in practice, I've seen circumstances, I've seen cases where the Chinese companies are putting hugely insufficient emphasis on due diligence, on knowing your target. Matter of fact, I have a client, this is a real case, that happened a couple of months ago, and that is before we got